All right. Hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of Working on Song Themes. How you doing, Mike?
Doing well. Thank you. I think I'm awake. I am.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but when it gets to around this time of year when the days are really long and the sun like rises at 6, I'm usually up at like 6:30, which is way earlier than I'm otherwise up. Uh, so
That
it's
may
very
explain it for me. Thank you.
it's very strange to be like, oh, it's like 9:30 and I've already been up for like 3 hours. Yeah. Got my run in because it's gonna be hot today. So
Yeah. Yeah, I get up early in general, but I was shooting for 6:30. That's when I think my alarm said. I was up at 5:30.
yeah,
It's like, damn it, I want more sleep, but I can't because
yeah,
there's sun.
yeah. So last time we had started working on our autocomplete component.
Yes.
So let me know when I can bring up your screen.
And you can. I ran the tests, all tests, so
Mhm.
we're good.
Great.
So let's see. We were up in here.
Right. So we had a drop down where it showed all the themes that we could select one. So that's all work. That all works. And now we want to do autocomplete. Do we want to run the app and just see
To
where
get
it's
our
at?
heads back in the game. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a good idea. So if we type interesting. What?
What?
Interesting. I was expecting Halloween. And it's actually, wow. So it's definitely an interesting state. Let me hit this, just see what happens. Okay, did bring that. And we know about the duplicates. That's a known
Our
problem.
yeah. So well, I know we got the drop down to work. I don't know that we're actually where we're at with the autocomplete. So let's
Right.
actually take a look because
Yes.
we didn't say we completed the autocomplete. We said we did the drop down and we were starting on the autocomplete. So I think we're just we'll have to take a look at
Yeah, we got list of unique themes, alphabetical.
yeah,
Show all existing things.
yeah.
Only one to be selected. So
I think we can look. I think we
start.
might have hard coded the
It does
response.
seem like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Hey there, Deepan. Always open for questions. Doesn't necessarily mean we'll be able to answer it, but we're here, so go for it.
aha.
Okay, so we did hard code it. That's great. All
Yep.
right. So that confirms that we didn't break anything, but I think we basically were saying we just started. And so
Right.
one of the things we did on this was we put the response body because we wanted this this request. Maybe scroll up just a line or two. Yeah. Nope, too much. Bring. Yeah, there we go. So that's the get mapping. And if you pull up the HTML, we'll see that it does that get request against that endpoint.
I'm trying to remember the name of the file. This one, right? Yeah. Theme
Yes.
search home.
Yeah. And so we'll see above that select because that's just the single drop down. Right. So we've got the trigger. So basically triggers on input when the input's changed, and it delays every 500 milliseconds. It does an HX get. That was the thing we fixed at the end of last time. and the target goes into search results. So with the hard-coded stuff, we know that that's working.
And we're just throwing in the div for now.
Yeah.
That's why we were seeing the cats and dogs there.
So I think so if we look above Vajira, to a certain extent, 21 is kind of done. I mean, we don't get the correct HTML autocomplete, but we do get that it puts it in the right place.
Does it?
Well, it certainly puts it in the right place for now. Like it puts it in the intended location, which is search results, which is right. Which is
that location.
yeah. So we haven't gotten to like making the component nice yet, but we were basically like, do we know how to use? So for me, this was, did we use HTMX correctly so that it made the request and put the HTML in the right place?
So I think the thing that's confusing is what is put in the right place. We were vague, and now the vagueries, no, the vagueness is getting us. Though vagaries is fun too.
Yeah.
Fun word.
Good evening, Astrid.
Hey, Astrid. So let's clarify this just so we're on the same page, so to speak. Returns HTML that is temporarily put in the div, because ultimately it's not going to go in that div.
Well, ultimately, I'm not 100% sure where it will go.
Because wouldn't... Okay, from a drop-down perspective, we wanted to narrow this list down to whatever's a filtration of the type.
Yeah, so I think
what's been typed.
Yeah, so I think for now, targeting just the div is sufficient, and we'll have. But what we want is that it actually pays attention to what we type. So we know that the right. So here again, we were sort of doing things a tiny step at a time. The first step was like, did HTMX do the right thing and make the request, and then take the take the response and put it in the place where we intended.
Right.
It did that. So now we can say, okay, now let's have it actually pay attention to the actual request, whatever you've actually typed.
Right.
That'll be an interesting
it
task.
will.
So that will mean that
so actually start typing returns.
So start
HTML.
typing, it just doesn't pay attention to what we're typing.
Right. So start typing returns hard-coded.
Sure.
HTML that gets put into a tab.
Yes.
Then the next step would be, we want start typing to actually...
Yeah, we want the HTML to be the narrowed down list that matches what's typed.
Narrowed down based on what is typed. Oh, I had one of those shower moments where you're thinking about something in the shower.
Yep,
Remember how we were talking about whether we're going to do search basing starts with versus anywhere within?
Right.
So the theme that I thought of, where it would be a 2-word theme, because it's Pride Month here in the US. And I could see somebody wanting to type the word pride.
Sure.
And want gay pride to come up. Doesn't mean we have to solve that right away. I think starts with it first would be a good one. But I now have a real example of where.
Yeah.
So it's really more, I snagged an example for future talk.
Right.
Future conversations.
Right.
Which I'll just throw down here for now.
Yeah, so you may want to look at the first word in a multi-word phrase. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yeah.
Search.
So it's still not within the word. It's just, but it's within the theme phrase. Yeah.
Right. Versus starts with first word versus beginning of any word.
Right.
e.g. Cool. I just wanted to throw that down in my,
Yeah.
get it out
Yeah.
of my
Yeah.
head.
Yep. Yep.
So, okay, back to where we were.
Yep.
So we want to do 22 next. So given
Right.
that 21, Jira 21 is completed.
Yes, we can close Jira 21.
Is 22 enough and not figure out if there's any more steps between 22 and 23?
I
Just
think
with the intent of as we implement, we'll learn things approach?
that's good enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I just wanted to, partially because we're streaming, I wanted to say it out loud what we were thinking. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good enough to move forward.
Yeah. So Deepan asks quite a long question, but I think the gist of it is there's so much to learn, and you can't master it all like other professions. So let me preface by saying other professions, I mean, you look at other professions. So for example, you know, law, accounting, medicine, any profession like that, and software is perhaps different in that there's just so much new that because it's so malleable and flexible and there's so many people doing different things. Um, but in any non-trivial profession, I mean, even being an electrician, they're like, what kind of electrician? Are you, sort of a household electrician and you're putting in, wall sockets, or are you like working in a factory and you're, hooking together very large machines? Still electricity, but very, very different knowledge that you need. So I think the hardest part, at least I know this is for me, is the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, and that you will never know it all. And you know, and this is why with I was actually coaching someone yesterday. We talk about learning projects. So there's katas, which is about practicing very, very specific techniques. Like I want to learn how to use extract method in various different ways, or I want to take this messy, huge ifs block. Gilded Rose is sort of the prototypical example, and clean it up. Versus a learning project, which is I want to create something that's realistic. And it has to be realistic in the sense that there have to be some kind of constraints. Because if you don't have constraints, then you can't make decisions, right? And a lot of what we do is make decisions and assumptions, but we also make decisions, and decisions based on assumptions. And if you don't have any real world constraints, even if they're completely made up, then you're never going to do anything, because you're going to be like, oh, I can do anything, right? Because anything will work if I have no actual requirements. And so for learning projects, I think it's really important that you have uh, sort of a boundary and a scope. And the reason why I talk about learning projects is because then you will learn what you need, as opposed to saying, oh my God, there's 10,000 things I could learn. Just the Java ecosystem, Spring. I mean, Spring is huge. There's lots of stuff in there. You just look at the modules that you can select as a starter, and there's 30, 40, 50 modules. I don't know the half of them. And so it's very easy to like look at that and be like, oh my God, I'll never know it. And that's why I really encourage folks to do learning projects, because it starts constraining that and puts a boundary around it. So it's like, I only need to know and learn just enough to get this thing done, because that's what we're doing here on stream, and that's what you do in software. Is if you don't know something, you learn just enough to do it. You don't, it's like, oh, we need to learn how to do coffee.
OAuth.
What?
Yeah.
OAuth, yeah.
OAuth.
Yeah. So let's go take a 2-day course on OAuth. It's like, that's like, maybe if there's a lot of people and you're about to do some heavy duty stuff, you might do that. But if it's just like, we need to add, OAuth, and we go look it up and we go figure it out, and then we move on. And that's the reality. And imposter syndrome is interesting. I think, you know, many of us suffer from this to sort of varying degrees of being like not confident, or not feeling like we know enough. Um, uh, I think there's a lot of good materials out there to talk about that. But I think again, it's don't worry about what you don't know. Focus on what you do know, um, and working on these small learning projects, I think, can really help build up. It's like, oh, look, I got this thing done. I was able to do this thing.
And I think, Deepan, also the fact that you don't know is actually a huge step. 'Cause a lot of people don't know they don't know, right? And those are the folks that are kind of stuck. And and we all will work with folks like that, where they just know what they know and they don't feel like they need to learn more. So the fact that you're aware that there's more to learn and you want to learn, that's that's already puts you higher up in the game than
Mhm.
the average
Yeah,
engineer,
yeah,
software engineer. The other thing I was going to say regarding that
yeah.
was, the thing about software engineering, software development, whichever term you want to use, it's one of the few professions. This is slightly a rant, but it's one of the few professions where there isn't the idea of continuing education units,
Right.
right? My partner's an interpreter,
Mhm,
and she has to do a certain number of CEUs every year. And it's not like, oh, woe is me. I have to do this thing to keep doing my profession. It's more like, this is great. It gives me time and space to learn more about what I need to do to
mhm,
be better at my profession. And that's
mhm.
sort of one of the sad things about our particular chosen profession, is it doesn't have that kind of thing that doctors and lawyers and, um, maybe even accountants, I don't know,
Yeah,
but
accountants.
interpreters,
Certain kinds of
um,
accountants, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, they have to keep
CPAs.
refreshing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, so part of it is it makes us have to be more self motivated, which can be hard,
yeah.
you know. So
Yeah, and, we all can feel like imposters or, feeling like we don't know enough in different contexts, 'cause it also depends on who you're surrounded by.
yeah.
There are always gonna be people who know more about something or who are better at something than you are. And I think, the important thing is to realize that you do know something, um, and, you know, comparing yourself to others is where it starts getting problematic, and that's why I like the learning projects, because you sort of compare yourself against yourself. And it's like, oh, now I'm able to do this that I was not able to do before. And as you build a project, and it might be months before you get to something where you have some kind of thing you can sort of use or play with, and you can say, oh wow, I created that, and I didn't think I could do that. Um, I always say don't go it alone. Like anything, difficult or challenging, or requiring, pushing through stuff that's not so easy. That's actually one of the reasons I stream, is it gives me that motivation to push through. It's like, oh, this really sucks, especially when I'm dealing with CSS. And you just make it through, and you push through, and sometimes you get a little bit of a hand. And this is why I also coach individual developers. Is a lot of times it's not the coding that's the problem. It's not the technology that's the problem. It's the, how do I even approach this these requirements? Like I want to, make an app that does, X, Y, and Z. To-do list is sort of the prototypical example. I don't even know where to start. How do I break things down into small pieces, right? So it's more the managing and slicing of the stuff. And it's, yes, there's the technical stuff, but that's the easier stuff to learn, because that's the stuff that, ChatGPT can give you an answer. It may not be the right one, but it can give you an answer, or at least point you perhaps in the right direction. But like, how do I break this down, and how do I do that? That sometimes is not as obvious, and I think is a much more important skill.
And I wanted to plus one Astrid's comment about, seeking out people who are, stronger than you are in particular areas, right?
Yes.
Like my son does that. He's a musician, and he, whenever possible, tries to play with people that are not at his level, but are people that are much higher level.
Hmm.
Like he wants to be pushed to be better, and being around great players is a good way to do that. And I find that to be the case also with software development. I've certainly enjoyed reaching out to people who like, like Ted.
Yeah,
When I
right.
first met Ted, he was, I was like, wow, there's so much I can learn from Ted, and I still is, right? But it's like you reach out to people and change your crowd, as Astrid says.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, and
one other thing is that's the other advantage of not staying in a company for too long
mhm.
is that the
Or at
more
least not
experience
staying on the same team with the same people.
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you. That's an even
yeah,
better way of putting it.
yeah.
Is that moving around and working with different teams, you get a lot more perspectives and a lot more, and also even OSs, right?
Mhm,
Moving from different operating systems, different languages. All of these things give you perspective that you wouldn't get otherwise. 'Cause I remember I was in a company for a really long time, and when I left, it was kind of like, whoa, and it was a little bit intimidating at first, but it turned out to be one of the best moves I ever made was to
mhm,
like stop being at that one company after 4 years and
yeah,
new language, new platform, everything. And it was
right.
challenging, but great.
And that's what I like about ensembling, and especially if you look at fast, where it's like you're shifting up, quote teams, like the group that's working together, perhaps in a mob. You're switching those up frequently, uh, and there could be some downsides, but the upside is you get to work with different people who sort of wanted to work on that specific story or that specific task, because it's sort of that self-organizational aspect, and certainly working in an ensemble, I think is exactly what you're talking about, Mike. It's like working,
Yeah.
with those people, um, and like Astrid says, it's like we all struggle with different things, so we have different expertise, and you know, if you're lucky and you're working on CSS and you have an expert in CSS, that's going to make life a lot easier. You'll learn from them, and they'll learn from you.
That's actually reminds me of one team. I don't want to say team building, but team activity that I found to be valuable as a coach is to do the skills marketplace activity. I don't know if you know that one, Ted, where
I'll
everybody in the
tell for
team,
those who don't tell us.
okay. Yeah. So everybody in the team, they start writing down what are your skills, right? And you start writing them on this, sticky notes and put it on the wall if you're all physically together. And you start to realize like the diversity of experience and also that no one person knows it all. And that helps with sort of getting an understanding of the skill of the entire team as a whole.
Mhm.
And like, oh, maybe none of us know anything about, I'm just going to use OAuth again. Um, maybe the six of us should spend a study session together on it. That's not
Right.
probably not the best example, but something where it's like, hey, none of us know this and we probably should.
No, that's a great example. It's like,
Yeah.
we might know like just get the basic OAuth, but it's like, oh, now we need to do this other kind of OAuth with, this other flow that we've never used before.
Right.
Well, absolutely, let's go take some time and figure that out. And it's much social learning and learning in a group is much easier,
Yeah.
and more fun, if usually, than trying to learn on your own. Even if none of you know it, you get the different perspectives. People understand things, and pick things up in different ways because we do have different sort of knowledge structures in our brain, and and that's and this is why I run a book club, is because it's hard to read stuff on your own, sometimes, or maybe you read it and you think you understand it, but it's not until you talk about it and explain it to somebody else, or ask questions, that you really get that deeper understanding. Let's say hi to some folks. Hello, Tone Fun. Hey there, Full Nuffle. And Full Nuffle has a question. How to have a logical architecture that can be partitioned into a physical architecture, and we're using hexagonal architecture. Um, I'm not sure about the last part of different profiles with different contracts.
I have the same question, what that means.
But I can certainly talk about the first part. I mean, hexed architecture, hex plus DD, which is the architecture that I use, because it's not pure hexagonal. As the application gets bigger, as you have bounded context, you're probably going to want to put those into separate modules. So you end up with a modular monolith. And then if you need to partition it physically, you split it along those module lines and basically separate each one out into a separate deployable. I always wonder, though, why bother? Like, if it's a really, really huge monolith that takes up a lot of memory, okay, I can see that. But if it's not that big, just deploy multiple copies of it and shut off or only activate, the modules that you need. You don't necessarily have to pull it out into separate repositories and code bases and deployable artifacts. But you certainly can. This is why, as things get larger, the nature of what we should be doing is I always look, you always, what's that?
It changes.
Yeah. And so I was going to say is, like, you look at biology. What do cells do when they grow? They don't grow infinitely large. They can't. What do? They split. Right? And it's exactly the same thing in code. You can have a class that has 5,000 lines in it. That's going to be really hard to work with it. And so what do? Well, we try not to let it get that far. We split it up before it gets that far. And what do we do with applications that internally get too large? You split them, and you find the boundaries. This is where domain-driven design and the bounded context can help you. And you slice it up and you split it. And so, but you want to make sure that you're splitting it for a good reason. And for me, there's two reasons that you go with something like a microservices. One is your team's too big. You're stepping on each other's toes trying to make changes. That happens probably when you get to about 8 people who are actually actively working on a code base. Probably going to want to split it. But it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to microservices. You just have to split it in some way, so you're not stepping on each other's toes. Modules are great. Microservices, if you really do start needing, I need to independently deploy these, and usually that pressure comes from then scalability, which most people overestimate their need for. So
maybe a heuristic could be go to microservices when you have no choice, when you're backed into the corner and have to, versus prematurely going to microservices.
Yeah,
seems to be the current theme in our industry, and it's causing the industry, untold pain.
It is very painful because people do not understand. I've said, I've had this rant, before, which is the main reason you split stuff into microservices is because you have too many people working on the same areas of the product and you want to split them up. That's, you talk to James Lewis, who I first learned it from back in 2011, right? 13 years ago. It was all about the people structure. And I was actually experiencing this. We had a team of 20 people and we were stepping on each other's toes. And it made it very difficult to work with. And had we split it up into microservice, which I proposed, but was not the right time, it would have been a lot easier. And so we basically sort of had to start segregating the code a bit. It was difficult, but that's what we wanted to do is split the code. But microservices aren't the only answer. Modules are a great answer. And it's much better and much easier to do refactorings if all the code is in a single code base and it's modularized so that you do have independent pieces that can be worked on independently.
And modular could be a step towards microservices if ultimately you need that. So modular in of itself is of value. So
yes, you absolutely want the modularity, regardless of whether you're going to actually split it out into separate deployable things. Because if you do have it modular, like you said, it's like you then have that choice. You can then say, monolith to microservices. Well, how do you go to microservices? You pull out a module and make it stand on its own. And if you really did it as a modular monolith, that would be relatively straightforward. Right? What used to be inter-app method calls is now you basically stick in some adapters in between the two, and now you can deploy them separately. Um, Perhaps not that simple, but it should be close to that simple. So, full enough, it's probably going to require a lot more detail about your domain. So you're talking about dentists, doctors, so appointments of some sort. Um, you generally want modules split along bounded context. So I encourage you, with whoever you're working with, who are the subject matter experts, figure out what those bounded contexts are. For example, if you were thinking about running a doctor's office, there'd be the scheduling aspect. That's a bounded context. There'd be a specific doctor's notes that they're taking on patients. I mean, that gets into whole medical record stuff. But like, what's my view of today and versus sort of the office as a whole. And then there's other things that have to be done. It's like letting somebody know that you know so actually sort of running the office. Okay, this person's ready for the next appointment, right? So there are different functions that need to happen. You want to figure out what those bounded contexts are, because you want to split along at least bounded contexts, if not subdomains. And if you're not sure what those bounded contexts and subdomains are, that's your first task. You can't figure out what the good lines to split things across until you figure that out. And that's not always easy. And that's why we have all sorts of techniques like event storming, event modeling, and various other techniques, which mostly involve getting everybody in the room, virtual or physical, to talk about what are all these things that we need this thing to do. And of course, preferably you do that before you embark on creating the system. But if the system's already there, that's fine too. You figure out what should the boundaries be, because it's all about boundaries. It's all about what are the boundaries, how big are the things, and are they too big? Should we split them, or are they too small, too granular? We've got 200 microservices when we don't need 200. Let's pull some of those back together, as some companies have done, and say let's just end up with 5 instead of 200. So you have to find the sort of the right level of granularity for those boundaries. But you gotta figure that out. You can't just look at it from a or you can't just pick something up and say, oh, we'll cut along these lines. You have to really spend time to figure out what those bounded contexts and subdomains are. All right.
Back to
Should we
my
get back to
screen.
code?
Sure.
Yes.
I don't know about code. We were still in Jira.
Oh, right. We weren't even in code. All right, let's switch there. So I think the next thing. Yes, that's the next thing. So there are two parts. What we have to figure out how to get what was typed sent across on the GET request.
Right.
So if you look at the HTML, maybe scroll up a bit to bring that into view. Yeah, so we've got a text input. Does it send? I don't even know what it sends. Do we want to bring up? Maybe move that to the top, and let's bring up the actual searcher that responds to that endpoint. Yeah. So what does HTMX do with
Like, does it handle request parameters? I imagine it must.
yeah, so let me look at the docs.
Do you want to share?
Yeah, so let me switch to this. So so we're doing a get request, which I think is fine. We're doing basically a search. So we want to do a get. So that's installing. I don't want installing. I want triggers. So form is triggered, everything triggered. Delay. So this is so basically this is what we're doing. We're basically only issuing a request if it changes. We've got our delay. And so
do we have the changes thing implemented again? Can you go scroll back up to that?
Yeah, we've got that input change, right?
Do not see it. Oh no, there it is. I see it. I found it.
Yeah.
It's within the trigger.
Yes. So the trigger is multiple pieces. It's got the input, so that's saying when the input changed, basically trigger, but delay. Don't do it more than every, or basically do it every 500 milliseconds to look for changes. Yeah.
Got it.
So basically,
are we back to your screen so I can switch back?
Yeah.
Okay.
I basically use tuple to view your screen. So these are trigger modifiers, trigger filters. We don't care about trigger filters. Request indicators. We don't care about request indicators. What we want to know is what the heck is the actual request that's made.
That's a single page. What about Control F on the word request?
What a smart idea. So HTMX expects responses to be HTML. That doesn't really tell us anything.
No, it doesn't really. It doesn't talk about request params, huh? Was that the only hit for request?
So here's the request headers. So let's see. So here's what happens. Values are gathered for the request. This is exactly the place an example, as Merrick would say, an example would be useful right about now. So values are gathered. So my assumption is based on this and a little bit of guessing about or assuming about how it works is that whatever is currently in the input field will be sent as a query parameter. I think what we can do is experiment.
You guys, if we could test that, right?
By adding, just looking to see if there's anything else. Yeah, there's nothing else here. Unless there's something in examples that's click to load. So the active search example, it doesn't post, but that's yeah. Well, we need to see those. What's happening on the server side? Like we know that that's going to happen. I'm assuming, based on what this is doing, that whatever, since this input field, this is pretty much what we're doing, that there'll be a request parameter. So I think let me switch back to your screen. We can basically start coding up a little bit of an experiment.
Okay, clear on my side.
So what we can do is on the autocomplete themes method at the bottom, what we can add as a parameter is an HTTP
change signature.
No, just start typing
HTTP.
Yeah, but it's going to be some class name, so it's probably going to be an HTTP servlet. So it's going to be lowercase for the everything after the H.
Right. Servlet request?
Yes, because we just want to see the servlet request. We don't care about the response. You can hit tab and we can erase the rest.
Yeah, I was gonna say we just do that.
Because what we want to do is basically want to sort of dump the request and examine it. I don't know if we want to do that in debugger or just put it as a log statement.
I don't have a preference.
Let's use the debugger. So these are the times when I'm like, what the heck is going on underneath with the framework or the library, and I don't understand it. And so that's like when I go into debugger, it's 95% of the time because it's something not my code that I don't understand. The variable doesn't matter. So let's put a breakpoint on line 30.
Boy. This like gets so crowded over here.
But that's not line 30.
Oh, true. There you go.
There you go. And let's stop the current running and then hit the little bug icon to run the debugger. Nope.
The bug.
Yep. And if we go back to the browser.
Yep. Did that break? It did. Or did it? No,
it didn't break yet.
Didn't break yet. Okay. So type.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's open up the request, and what we want, we might have to do some tricky stuff here.
Under this?
Yeah, so let's
or which this? The this $0 or the higher level this?
So what what I usually do at this point is I start doing request dot get. So let's get what are our options? Body? No, that's a request. So get params. Get parameter map. Let's see what that looks like. So there's something in the parameter map. There it is, theme query, and there's the B. So my suspicion was correct that basically it submits the input field, which we named, as we can see on line 15 on the top. We named it theme-query. And since the input type is text, it basically submitted as if we had done a submit on a form that contained that after we typed the letter B. So that's perfect. So now what we can do is we can stop, we can get out of debugger. We've discovered and figured out what we need to figure out. And what we can do is let's before we forget, let's turn off the breakpoint. And now we can actually put a query parameter here, request parameter. So replace that argument with request param. Yeah, replace the whole thing. And so, yeah, the value is basically the name of our property.
Theme query.
Yep.
Do we do required or default?
Required, I think we'll leave because it's always going to be there. But we should do a default value of an empty string just to be sure. And now we need to actually define the variable. So it's going to be string. And we can call it theme query, that's fine. We're eventually going to need the model, so you may as well leave that in there.
Leave it. Okay.
Yeah. So that's all we need to define, sort of to put down in code what we think it's going to be. And now we need to switch gears and start test driving it. If we wanted to, we could return what you type just to prove that that's what's happening. That might be a useful experiment.
What I just typed, you mean this part?
Yeah. So instead of, or in addition to returning that hard-coded stuff, we want to return the theme query that came in so we can see that.
Oh, I see. Got it.
But you probably want to put some HTML around it.
Yeah. What do you think? Just a paragraph around it?
P is fine. Yep.
I'm just going to go back. Now, this is what you're saying?
No, you'll have to either do string concatenation or do a string format. So replace theme query with a %s, and we can use the string format. Yeah, exactly that.
Is it formatted or?
Yeah, it's formatted.
Yeah. But I got that wrong. What's up with that? Why is it thinking it's that?
No, got that right.
It did?
Yeah.
Oh, because it's this one. Right.
Yeah. Because that's the variable.
Right.
So let's run it and see. We should basically see our search echoed back to us.
Okay, let's run that.
And for those of you watching, that is a predict. Even though we're not writing automated tests, it's what we're basically doing is we have a prediction of how something is going to work. And if that prediction succeeds, then we know that we're on the right track and it confirms what we want to do.
Okay, I'm going to type the letter H.
Sure. And now keep typing. Yep. Excellent. So it's triggering every half second, and it's sending whatever you've typed so far. And so we know we're receiving that. We know that's what we need. So now we're done with our experiment. And so now we can say, okay, we've got the HTML, HTMX. We've understood how it's going to talk to our what kind of HTTP request it's going to send. And now we can, yes, we can now move to the next tile in the game. So what's our next step?
So now we're going to have to, right now we're just sending back what the user's typing, but what we want is to query the repository for which themes do you have that start with what's been typed so far.
Right.
So would this be a theme finder test? That's kind of tied in, or is it more searcher test? Or even farther out?
Well, we're not creating a new endpoint, so we don't need to create a new MVC task because the endpoint already exists. So then
is that MVC test still going to work since we added parameters to it?
Well, right now it won't break. At some point it might not work. I don't know that we have much of a test other than, I mean, we could look. If we have a test, it's probably only that it returns a successful response.
So it's that one.
Yeah. So it's basically, does the endpoint exist? We don't have the request parameters required, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
We could add it on basically just to make sure that it doesn't fail in the future, in case we do want to require it. That might be the first test to modify.
At that point in time or now?
Right now, let's just do it. So this is the outermost test. So let's just modify this test to send along the query string.
The perform on this one, on 41.
So yeah, so just like we did on line 35, we're going to do a similar thing here.
Now this would be theme query.
Theme dash query, because that's the request parameter.
Yeah.
And it likes pants. That's hilarious.
That's really funny. Make something different. Actually, what's
pants is fine. I don't care.
Okay.
I mean, so that should still pass.
Since it's MVC, I'm just running that one because it's slow.
Yep. Excellent.
We're all good.
So let's do a commit, since we changed stuff and we still have test passing.
Introduce theme query.
Yep. I notice we're a bit inconsistent in how we named our request parameters.
Should we fix that before we commit?
Yeah, I think I'd like to fix that. So on 29, we have a hyphen separating it. On 34, we've got the Pascal case.
Request parameters are normally kebab case, right?
I don't think they're ever. Are they always? I think it depends.
Yeah.
I think we have to decide what we want.
Prefer.
I think I tend to go with a kebab case.
So rename this one.
Yeah.
Now, will this because it's string, refactoring won't necessarily catch it all.
Right. I would probably do a global search. A global search and replace for that.
Oh, bummer. But not all of these.
I mean, to a certain,
are the
yeah,
same.
not all of these are gonna, yeah.
Yeah.
I would basically look. So
the other approach is we could just change this one and see what breaks.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure that that's going to catch it because we do not have UI HTML tests. So what we can do is search for that. There's not that many occurrences of it, and just so for example, we can pretty quickly go to the HTML one, which is this one, and fix that. And then anywhere else it appears is going to appear as part of a string. So the only other two places that actually matter are basically this one and this one. So we can change our test, then have the test fail, and then change the code.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay, so now in this case, we just want to run this class. Right. Again, because it's slow. So this should fail. Oh, it passed.
Mainly because at this level, we're not actually forced to basically, because it's required as false. There's no reason for it to do anything.
So should we create a failing test and then rename it?
I don't feel like we need to do that. I just wanted to start with a test, and then we can just fix that. Yeah.
Okay. That covers everything now?
Yeah, so let's run even though it shouldn't matter, let's run I don't know that we need to run all the tests. Let's run the IO free because we ran the MVC ones and those are fine.
I only ran one MVC, this particular one.
Yeah, that's the only one that tests against that endpoint, so that's fine.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're all passed.
All right, now we can commit.
Good.
I would add a statement of aligned naming for request parameters to be kebab case.
Now I want kebabs for lunch.
Mm.
Man, a good kebab. Mm. My favorite kebab place closed down a year ago.
Oh no!
I'm still sad about it.
Oh. All right, so we have our MVC tests doing what they need to do. They're passing, and so now we can drop down a layer into our controller test that tests the song theme searcher directly.
This one?
Yep. Do we have a test that tests against that endpoint? Against autocomplete themes?
I do not know. Let's see. No usage found.
All right, good. Then let's write a new test.
Okay. And that's a good place for it right there, isn't it? What do we want to name this? The goal is to make sure, well, this is at that level. This is controller level.
Right.
Do we want this to go all the way to the repository or to a test double? Or is it too early for that conversation?
It's going to have to go to something, and will have to be a test double, because otherwise we'll have no way of, well, it doesn't have to be a test double, but that will be the most efficient way to do it.
Right.
I don't know what test double we need yet.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit of a tangent. So as far as the goal of this test.
So what's nice about this test is it returns a string with the exact content that we could then inspect. Right. So if we say that, we've sent in HALL, and we expect it to be one paragraph of containing Halloween, then we know that that's what we want.
I'm just trying to think of how to phrase the name of the test. Returns.
So it's going to return HTML with themes matching request.
And we don't need to talk about substring in the sense of, as long as it matches, we're good then.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, do we want to put autocomplete in the test method name, or do we want to create a nested class and call it autocomplete?
Well, certainly make this test name, because that test name will get long if we don't put it in the embed in.
Well, we've had longer test names.
True. I mean, I guess my inclination is not to go to the class until we've got multiple tests.
That was my thinking as well, because I'm not sure I don't think we're going to need all that many. So I would basically prepend it, prefix it with autocomplete returns.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We could steal this.
Sure.
Actually, we need the, yeah, we've already got the model in that. So we need to create a model. because we added it to the request.
Actually, we don't need the model. I don't know what I was thinking.
Oh.
I know what I was thinking, but we don't need the model.
So we can take it out of the...
Yeah, we can take it out of there. So the reason we don't need the model is we're not returning something that will get combined with the template. We're just returning HTML right directly.
What?
The code full line code completed one still wanted them to put the model in there, and I'm like, no, be quiet.
What do you think?
That's fine. Well, you want to hold on to the return value, right?
Yeah. Thank you. No, it's not Hal. It is actually what
could have been.
It is.
Could be auto-completed themes, the last option. I like how put that in the past tense. That was nice.
Yeah. Like it. Okay, so a search that auto-completed themes contains. Now this will be.
Well, here it's going to be. This is going to be is equal, right? This is a string, and we're saying that it's literally this other string. I think you want a string around that.
Yeah, I think so too. Alt J? No.
Control Shift Enter.
Control Shift Enter. Why did I think it was J?
Or Alt Shift. J is for combining lines. The Enter one is basically complete.
Control Shift Enter. Yeah, for completing.
Complete the statement.
So now
theoretically that should work.
Oh, because we're returning. No, it shouldn't work.
It won't work yet, but I mean it could. Sorry, I didn't mean should. I meant could work. Because we have the song themes controller. Can we see what create song themes controller is doing? The one that calls. What is that doing? So it creates the null song service, and then does an add song. It passes in a stub theme finder. What does the stub theme finder do? I think we probably want to make that programmable. Because right now it's not obvious what stub values it's going to return.
Right. Can we take a break first?
I was about to say, let's take a break and then we'll do that.
Sounds good.
All right. See you after the coffee break, folks. Hey folks, so as I've been talking about on stream, I run a book club, and we just decided on our next book for the book club, which is going to be Martin Fowler's infamous refactoring book, second edition. So I've read the first edition very long time ago, basically pretty much not long after it came out. I've not really read the second edition in depth, so I'm actually looking forward to this. And our first session will be in less than 2 weeks. So you can go to the website to find out and get links to the Discord. So basically, we're going to use the Discord again to coordinate the book club. No charge. All you got to do is send me a direct message with your full name, so I know you're a real person. And this page has all the information, so you can go look at that. That's this link. So ted.dev/book-club, kebab case there. And has the schedule for the first session, what we're going to be reading, which is basically pretty much the first 20 or so pages. And we'll talk about that. The second edition uses JavaScript, but what probably I and perhaps others will do is provide Java or other language implementations of what Martin shows in the book. So join us for that. It's always good discussions, and I'm looking forward to it. All right.
Rock and roll.
So let's get back to it. There we go. So we wanted to make our stub theme finder programmable. So let's do that.
What do you? In what way are you thinking? Like through constructor parameters?
Yeah, I think so.
Who's using it right now? Just that one test, or that one helper within that test
Right.
class.
Right.
So what do you think? Introduce parameter?
So let's see. We probably
Or do
So let's
field.
What do we want
Field?
people to pass in? I think do we want them to pass a list? That's kind of annoying. Let's do var args.
Yeah.
So we can make that list a field, but I think we'll make the constructor var args.
Now var args of themes.
Correct.
Not of songs. Right.
Right. But let's make that a field first.
Yeah. Is it F for field?
F for field. Yes.
Yeah. And themes. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes. Except when you extracted it, we want to. I don't know if it'll let us. We'd like to initialize it in the constructor if possible. I don't know if that was an option. I forget.
I don't. Well, I mean, do undo and we'll try it again. I don't remember seeing that as an option. Oh, it is an option.
Yeah. So the non-modal it's not as obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the name, we want it to be themes.
I'm disappointed that it didn't suggest that. Like
as a default.
It's in the method name. Why did it apply that? I don't know. Okay, so that's perfect. And now we can did you want to run the test just to be sure?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
But you were talking mid-sentence, so I decided.
I saw you poking around up there, so I was like, oh.
Yeah. Well, I turned the. It did break.
Yeah. Well, the test that we're currently writing is broken, which is unsurprising.
Right. Yeah, because
it doesn't.
We haven't done it yet.
So let's go to where the stub theme finder, and let's push out those as variables. Can we? What would be nice is if we took both of those and extracted both of those. Can we extract that? Well, let us extract that to a variable.
No.
No. Because what I want is I want to extract it to an array variable, because then it'll be easier to move to the var args.
Right.
So let's do that. We'll have to do that as a manual refactoring. Oh my God.
Okay. So would we do it by just creating an array?
So we don't. So we want a string array. Yeah. So string.
Or
Yeah.
when you say string array, do you mean like that?
String array, not an array list.
Ah.
Because what we want is we want the parameter for no old style string array.
Oh. Like that.
No.
Remember, I didn't do old school Java. I'm new to Java.
So it's string open close square bracket.
Oh.
I was saying old school.
Really old school. Okay. Yeah. Got it.
And so we can call these theme array. And then we can do the curly brace for the, and then you can just cut and paste. And then we want themes to be, I think we can say arrays.of. I don't think we can pass in a theme array here. I think we have to say arrays.of. So we don't want list of, arrays.of, I think. Could also see if autocomplete will help us. So delete the semicolon because that might get, there it is. Arrays as list, right. That's what we want. So this is what I talk about a lot in this idea of composite refactorings. Right. So our larger goal is we'd like to make this constructor be var args. We could have just gone right there, created the var args, and then I have to figure out, oh wait, how do we take var args and turn that into a list? But we're taking smaller steps. And so this should still be the same result, the one test failing. But this will help us verify that otherwise we did the conversion of a string array into a list correctly.
Right.
And so now what we can do is we can push this out as a parameter.
Like that?
Yep.
Whoa. Oh, it went out to the caller.
Right. So that should still work.
Right. Because that was automated.
Yep.
And while that's running, we can go look at the test, see how it changed the caller.
Yeah. So we'll want to get rid of having to pass it as a string array. So back in the stub theme finder, change the square brackets to 3 dots. That's exactly equivalent because var args are basically an array underneath. All right. Yep. And now we can go to the caller and they don't need the new string anymore. In fact, IntelliJ is suggesting that you can just have IntelliJ do the right thing.
If you do
Alt enter.
Yep. Remove explicit creation.
Yep. So it got rid of the new, it got rid of the curly braces, and now it's just var args, and that should still work.
Yep.
Or work in the same way. Yep.
And now the preparation is now ready for this to accept themes coming in such that they return. Get rid of this blank line, I presume.
Mm-hmm.
So now this test currently it's hard coded for Halloween and New Year's.
Right, which is probably like we actually want a version where we specify the themes directly and we don't care about songs.
Right. And I'm actually, so the songs are added to, I see, the songs are added to the service.
Right.
But what's interesting is we're not looking at those songs' themes.
Right. Yes.
We're using this stub theme finder. Interesting.
Right. Which perhaps is not correct.
Yeah. So should we make a new helper that just does what we want?
Yes.
We want to refactor this towards it.
Well, this one's being used for other purposes. So what I would want to do is have one that's dedicated to creating the song themes controller with a list of themes as opposed to a list of songs.
Right. So could we extract this method into a method that would be the...
I'd probably do a copy instead of an extract.
Ah.
Because we want what this method does, we just don't want line 92, basically.
Right.
But we want to leave this one alone. That's why I mentioned copy.
Gotcha. Okay. So now var args are not, if this is themes, var args, is that still the same signature though? So if this was string.
Yes. Yes.
It's not like lists where in Java it can't tell the difference between a list
right.
of strings
because arrays are types that are not, we don't lose those types. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so then we don't need this.
Right.
We want that. And now we want this to take themes.
Correct.
Okay, so now we go back to the tests we're writing.
Yep.
The broken test. That's using the var args.
Is that calling the method we just created?
Wait a second. Yeah. What's up with that? No.
Yeah. So who's calling this method? Because they're doing they're maybe doing it in a way that we don't want them to.
Autocomplete.
So that's the autocomplete one. What's the other one?
So this is testing the alphabetization.
Right. That one could use the new method too. So whatever. So so we basically need to not use that method because we don't need to be creating the songs in that case either.
Should we put the deprecated on this to help us?
No, I would basically delegate it to the new method we just created, and then we can just inline it.
Return. The other one was under.
That's in the same place.
Was it in the same file?
Yeah.
This one.
It's just unused right now.
Got it. Is that right?
Looks right to me. Let's try it.
So everything but the one. Oh, something else broke. The one.
I was thinking that was going to happen. So let's go to our stub theme finder and make sure that when it says all unique themes alphabetically, that's actually sorted.
Right, because we What was
We're
it?
saying that theme finder, that's its job, is that when it returns the themes, they are sorted. So
Right. See, we had list
we
of,
had
we had
pre-sort, yeah,
manually.
right.
Got it.
So now we can emulate that behavior. And this is sort of one of the downsides of, or one of the potential dangers of mocks or stubs, is that you don't properly fake the behavior, and so you get into trouble. So we can just say collections.sort. But we'll actually need to do that on the line before, because it doesn't return anything. Yep.
Let me get rid of that extra space. So
Let's
now
try it.
that should fix the broken test, but the other one's still broken.
Yeah, it should fix the model.
Model.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it starts with model.
Excellent.
Cool. So then, actually, I shouldn't have closed that. So then the remaining one is this one, which is broken.
Right. But let's do a commit, because we made some modifications and improvements to the stub.
Commit all of it, or just the improvements to?
No, let's commit all of it, because we did improvements both on the stub and on the searcher test.
Yeah, but we also did create the new searcher test.
That's fine.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not going to try to chunkify it. I don't think that's worth it.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, hey, dude, to attitude.
Hey.
Went through that event storming exercise. Yeah, ChatGPT, I find the LLMs to be useful sort of for brainstorming some of the things when you're trying to figure out, especially if you don't have a real subject matter expert. Like I was saying earlier, if you have a learning project, sometimes you can brainstorm and bounce things off of ChatGPT, and I find that actually pretty useful. Ah, vacation, nice. Hey there, Tukes. No, we're not going to make estimates as to when this is released. It's especially harder. Like, if we were working a regular number of hours a week, we might be able to provide some range. But since even the amount of time we spend on it is pseudo-random,
Like, for example, the first hour we spent a lot of time talking about things that had nothing to do with this app.
Well, there's that, and but there's also, like, are we going to stream 1 day with this week, 3 days this week? We have no idea. So it'll be it'll be ready when it's ready. Yeah. Is it done yet? Yeah. That's a fine question. Is it done yet? When is it going to be done is a different question that I'm not going to answer.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Exactly.
Are we there yet? Okay, we're going to put
you can come on every stream and ask, are you there yet? And that question we'll be able to answer.
You can also always hit refresh on the live website.
True, and see if anything happens that's useful.
Yeah. If it doesn't say coming soon,
right,
then you know it's live. Now I lost my StreamYard. There you are. Okay. What we're going to say for commit message on this?
Made the stub theme finder configurable. I think that was the main thing.
Do we care about that test got added, or not till it's? Yeah. Okay. I'm fine with it. I have no strong opinions on that one.
I find I don't think terribly hard about my commit messages, because at least in a non-team environment, I almost
never look at them.
I don't really, I don't really look at them, and if I do, it's usually good enough, or I can just look at the diffs pretty easily. So, all right,
so we want to get this failing test to pass now.
We'd like it to pass.
So we're creating a controller with themes. I'm going to look at the path. Yeah, we're calling
And
this.
we wanted to inline that because that was a useless delegation.
Right. Which name do we want to keep? The
I like the with themes, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. So if I do it from
It
here, will it
just
keep...
Yeah, it should, because it's only used once.
And remove.
So inline all and remove, yeah.
Yeah, so it did keep it. So now we don't even have to, the other benefit is we don't need to worry about the fact that the overloading of names, one which takes songs, which now then
Right.
begs the question,
yeah.
Should we make this one with songs?
No, because I think so the reason why I liked with themes is because the types are just string.
Right.
Here, the type is song.
Song, so it's obvious.
So it's
now this is
obvious.
not var args.
So the sub theme finder is var args. The incoming thing to this method is not var args. We could, because we could just make it var args. It would be really easy to do.
Yeah. So if we just did,
I wonder, will it suggest var args? If you do like an alt enter? Nah, it won't. That's a bummer. Oh well. So yeah, so you can just do what you were doing.
Nope. Okay, I was just seeing if it depended where you were.
Right.
I presume like that will work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now if we rerun this, the one test using this is the broken test, so it should break, but should break in the same way.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, it's used in two places.
Right. Was that a model test that failed for a
Mm-hmm.
minute, and now and then our new test.
Now the new test.
Failing.
Okay. So back to the new test, where autocomplete returns with themes matching requests. We're expecting with those two themes, we type HAL, we should get back Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
So that means this needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
Right now it's just returning what it's getting back.
Yeah, so there's I think there's no need to do a constant return, because we know we're gonna have to look in something to get that, because we already have sort of a constant return value. So I think we can now jump to, well, how do we do that? How do we search for, who do we ask?
So this is the controller for theme search.
So who has the information about various ways to search for themes?
Looks like theme search, song theme searcher. No?
Well,
sorry,
no,
we're back to,
because that's the song searcher.
Yeah, I went in circular logic.
It's the theme finder, right? Because the theme finder is all about finding themes.
Oh, right. Right now we're using the stub theme finder. And we're not using the theme finder yet.
So we'd like to use the theme finder, since it's all about finding themes. It may not have the exact method we want. So it had the method where it's like, hey, we want to create a dropdown, give me everything. But now we want to do a more sophisticated search, which
I want to see what
is
the theme finder is.
we'd like
Oh,
to
you need
find themes starting with.
right. So that means we need to add to the interface.
Probably. We don't know that 100% for sure right yet.
True. So we would go back to
So what code is currently hard coded that we need to
that's the
modify?
endpoint. Yeah, this one here.
Right.
So this will have to use the finder.
Right. And so here's where we define what method would we like theme finder to have that would make our lives easy.
Right. So something along the lines of starts with, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I like the name, but you can start with starts with.
Right. We got to start
as
somewhere.
a name.
So we can start with starts with, yes.
The theme query is what's coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Pop it into a var. Oh, it won't tell us what the var is because it doesn't know it's a string yet.
Yeah, well, so you'll have to do that manually.
Yeah.
I know, it's terrible. Well, so so what are we expecting? Are we expecting
a list of themes?
Probably list, yeah.
Yeah, because it's going to be a subset.
It could be 0.
More than one. Right.
It could be 0, it could be 1, it could be many. So that usually to me indicates it's going to be a list.
I'm mixed about the term the variable name themes. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say I think that's too general. I think we can say a little bit more about what those themes are.
My first thought was which I don't like, found themes. Filtered.
I like matching.
Matching. That's even better.
Yeah. Hey, 404 not found. Welcome. Is Vertex worth looking into? Why would you look into it? What are your needs? You should have known I was going to respond to that question with a question.
So let's create starts with.
Let's create it. Yep.
What? Oh. Yeah, there we go. Now that's creating it in the interface. It automatically created it there.
That's fine. We'll end up with some compile errors, but accept all that.
Okay. This point still should be broken.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's
so here, yeah. So we need to figure out what do we want. What do we want? So let's implement the method. I think Control O will do it.
Oh.
You just go to the end. I think that's sufficient.
So we've got the themes. Mm-hmm. We want to filter on them.
So, well, is there any other place that's not compiling?
Oh, let's.
Okay, great. So let's.
So we want this to take the themes in the field,
right,
and filter them or reduce them down to.
Yeah, and so here probably are. We could do that. We could just say return themes, not list of themes. Themes is already a list.
Oh, right.
And so this will certainly break because we'll be returning too many, but let's do it anyway.
But now I have a different failing message. Oh, interesting.
Right. So we did that, and I wanted to do that because we now need to at least format the themes that we get correctly, as opposed to using the theme query. So if you look at the implementation, we're not paying attention to the themes we found.
Implementation of which?
Of the searcher, the controller. Right, because we're finding the matching themes, we're just ignoring it. So we need to now format it properly.
Right. This is what you mean.
Yes.
Well, wait a second. That's going to stuff all. If there's more than one, it's going to stuff all of them between P and P.
Well, right now our test is only asking for one.
True.
So we'll see what happens. It probably will not be correct, but it will be closer. Yep.
Oh, interesting.
So not quite what we want.
Right.
So let's do the formatting correctly.
You mean here on 29?
Yeah, we're going to need to throw that away and do something different. So what we want to do is we'll want to do a stream and then map, and then the map will actually do the formatting for us. Actually, we could just do stream joiner. Actually, let's try string joiner. So I don't think we need to necessarily do map because it's already as a string.
String joiner, is that like that?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And that's a class.
So what it says, close at least.
Yeah. I'll do that, but then we want to just replace this with.
So string joiner
Actually, wait a second.
takes multiple arguments. So what do we want? We want when we concatenate the strings, we want a prefix of the opening paragraph tag, suffix of the closing paragraph tag, and then maybe a new line separating each one. Right, so it takes three arguments: a delimiter, the things that separate each item, the prefix, what to put before each item, and then the suffix, what to put after.
Okay, so it'd be like this, but the thing that let me get this in first.
Mm-hmm.
So like that.
Right.
But
we don't want comma as a delimiter.
We don't?
No.
Okay.
Because we don't want P, Halloween P, comma, P, New Year's P, comma. We don't want that.
Oh.
We want the separator to be a new line.
Oh, that's a new, I see. Gotcha.
And now we need to actually use the joiner.
Right, and we got to figure out how to get rid of the square brackets.
No, we don't.
We don't? Okay.
No.
So joiner, what do we got?
So we could do using the add, but since we've already got a list, this is actually not going to be the way we want. So we actually are going to need to use a stream just to collect things so that we can iterate over it. So if we do matching themes dot stream dot collect, so get rid of joiner. We're actually not going to use joiner, but that helped us figure out what we need the joiner to be.
Right.
Matching themes is lowercase.
Oh.
So we want to get a stream on that. And then we want to collect. And we are going to do joining. And it's basically going to be those parameters. and that returns a string. So that's basically what we're going to return. I don't know that you necessarily need to var it up at all, just direct return.
Oh, okay.
So instead of .var, you could say .return.
Sweet. Get rid of this. Get rid of that.
Yep.
Get rid of that.
Yep. Now let's try it. So now I expect it to be broken, but broken at least in a more correct way. That's actually not the way I expected it. I think I think I confused the suffix and the delimiter. So our delimiter is actually not a new line. It's actually a close new line open. I think that's what we want.
Close new line open.
So close the paragraph tag, new line, open a new paragraph tag. Because the prefix and suffix are for the entire thing, not per item, which is what I was thinking of. Do you want me to say again what I want you to do? Or you? Yep. I think Mike is frozen. So while I'm waiting for Mike to come back, yep, we lost Mike. So Vertex is known for high performing, like if you really, really need very high performance servers, and it's all about sort of reactive, I think, kind of stuff. It does have its place. And so it really depends on what you want. But unless you have a specific need that around performance that Vertex could solve, I would basically not bother. Yeah, not looking into new frameworks is a good idea. unless there's something that you need. I'm going to check in with Mike, see what's going on. Let's see, any other questions? We're all caught up there. No, I didn't delete Mike. We seem to have lost connection because let's see if I can bring him back. Nope, he's offline. Let me check. So let's since we're almost at another break anyway, let's take a break. And let's see if I can get him reconnected. Ooh, fractal nature. Let me take a break and then we'll see where we're at. All right. So while we're trying to, so Mike's internet did go out. So while we're trying to figure out how to, it's not much I can do. Not sure how much he can do. But I can talk about. So, Astrid, was there something specific you had in terms of fractal nature? It's a very interesting statement, and I'm not quite sure what that would be. But I thought it might be useful to take another look at the architecture of what we're building and sort of where we are and sort of how I'm mentally tracking what kinds of tests we're writing and sort of what the test is actually testing against. So let's grab this and we'll grab that. Let's duplicate that and move it over here. And I'm going to have to center that because that's the way I am. So this is basically what I've been now calling hexed. So it's hexagonal plus domain-driven design. And the reason why I no longer call it just hexagonal on its own, because hexagonal, and Alistair Coburn, the inventor of it, has made it very clear that he is agnostic to what you put inside the hexagon in terms of, do you split it into application and domain layers, or is it just one big application code? And so so there's basically, I use the domain-driven part, and it's 2 layers. And this is what clean architecture gets at. I just don't, I think clean architecture, and I've said this before, clean architecture and onion and hexagonal, they're all separation of concerns architectures. I just don't like the diagrams that clean gives you, because it, to me, I think the separation or split and clarity around what happens on this end and sort of what happens over here, I think in terms of inbound and outbound, or triggering and responding, I think is actually really nice to have that symmetry, or actually asymmetry, and that the left side here is very much, these are triggering events that cause the application to do something, and that these then are requests or notifying, either notifying or fetching information from an external service so it can get its job done. And that everything inside of here is your domain, and it has absolutely no knowledge of what's going on, or that even the outside world exists. And I think, but it's really this asymmetry that I really like from the hexagonal diagramming point of view. You don't get these diagrams. What's I'm curious what you're not getting. So let me get rid of actually these arrows now. And so what we just started working on is, and we started with the outside, right? So we had, we can stick it here, and we can call, this is the browser. Oops. Actually, really, it's the HTMX part of the browser, the JavaScript that's running in the browser, that's going to do it, right? So it basically is out here, and it makes a request then, and it hits our system. And basically, this is our inbound adapter. or triggering adapter, depending on how you want to think about it. And let's rotate this. And so this adapter, this is our song theme searcher. Right. So the endpoint that they're hitting is basically the theme query. Is that what the endpoint was? That was the parameter. I think it was, I forget what the name was, but it's basically theme query. So the browser sends the request to here. This handles that request. And then this is the code that's going to do, right? That's the mediator, that's the adapter between the outside world. So we get the request, we get a string, and we need to basically figure out who do we call to get that information. And that's going to be an application use case service, which in our case is actually a port, because there's no there's actually not a use case per se. So use cases are almost not always, but a lot of use cases are around change of state. But here we're actually just searching for things, and so there's no state change, and so we can directly use a port. So I'm going to grab one of these. Right, so this is our theme finder. And so the theme finder, then we have our concrete implementation, right, which is our database. Oops, go away dictionary. And I'll move this down. And the arrow should be, there we go. And so what we want then is our adapter, right? Adapters never talk to the domain directly. Here, we don't actually care about the domain. There actually isn't much of a domain involved in the theme searching. So we're pretty much going to have this talk directly to the theme finder. And let me color these appropriately. And so when we're testing, there is sort of multiple layers that we can test against. So the MVC test was basically testing, did this work? Right? Did we acknowledge that hitting this endpoint did the right thing? And that was our MVC test. That was really just, does Spring, did we tell Spring the right thing? Does it map to the right thing? Then we want to test the controller directly, and so that's a unit test. So this testing here was basically a framework test, right? Because we're sort of testing the leading edge, or the thing that connects to the outside world. And so that was our MVC test. And actually, I can show that. Let's go to song themes. I think Mike didn't push, so I may not have the latest code. Yeah, so it doesn't have the latest, but basically we were writing a test directly against this method. So we had our MVC test, which basically was testing this part, the get mapping. And now we're writing tests directly against this that takes a query and hopefully returns the right thing. And so so this is the MVC test. Let's move that over here. So that's this thing. And then we've got our controller test, which is IO free, right? So there's no Spring involved in it. We can call it directly because we can instantiate it directly. And so that's, you can sort of think of it as being at a layer below. So here we're sort of checking the outside edge. Did we configure the mappings correctly? And this test is now we're testing the class directly. We're instantiating the class as we saw. We were handing it the stub theme finder, right? It's basically handing it instead of using the real thing. We actually had our stub theme finder. And let's color that green as well. Because what we want to check is when we make a request here and then it calls whatever theme finder is in play, that we then actually get the results back that we expect. And so that's what we're doing here. And what's nice about this is we can take this same test that's IO free and actually stub in the real JDBC theme finder, and it should work as expected. So this requires all themes to be already persisted. Not sure what you mean by that, Astrid. So when we're using the stub, it's whatever the stub reports, which is just testing, right? It's not testing the theme finder capability, the concrete theme finder capability. It's just testing that the controller here is actually calling the theme finder and formatting the results. So we're checking two things here. What we're checking here is one, that it got themes from the finder. And two, that it formatted the HTML as desired. Now we could split out the formatting of the HTML. We could extract that and put that in a separate class. And that is what we would probably want to do at some point. Oh, hey, Sweetie. Yes, we lost Mike. His internet went down. Surprising that it's still down. Give me a few more minutes. If not, then we'll just end early today. I know, crazy, right? So this is, let's do that. And let's do that. So those are basically the two things that this test is testing. And the fact that it's testing both of those is actually a little concerning, because we want our test to really try to test only one thing at a time. And so this is actually testing a bit more than I would like, but it's a place to start. Really, the main thing we want is that it got themes from the theme finder. Right, that everything is wired up correctly, that it calls the right method on the theme finder, and that we get what we expect. The formatting the results as HTML, right, tacking on the paragraph elements, that's really separate, and that I generally pull out into separate code that's then directly testable. Given these themes, I expect this HTML, right? So again, sort of breaking things down into smaller pieces. So let's see, when there are themes that are not yet persisted. When would there be themes that are not persisted? I'm not quite understanding that scenario. So during typical operation, when songs are added, right? Because we don't actually add themes. We add songs. Concurrent users. So if you're talking about users trying to search, still not understanding what they wouldn't find. So if the songs aren't in there and the songs have themes, yes, if we add songs with themes, until we persist those, they wouldn't be found. But once we persist them, then they're found. Because remember, the theme finder is not a database. It's not its own thing, right? So if we look at this diagram, it like our JDBC theme finder is actually, there's no separate database for this. It's going directly to, and here I'll what shape can I use? No database shape. All right, I'll pick this. And I'll make that. So this database is used both by the JDBC theme finder as well as the song finder, right? Because there's one database, there's one table. So you can't add themes without adding songs. So it's always you're adding songs to the database that have themes. And then we just find the unique themes for all the songs that are in the database. I'm not seeing, no. When you add songs, they get written to the database. So that's not this part of the hexagon, this view of the hexagon is just showing the theme finder. For songs, right, we basically import the songs and they get saved to the database. So if I add songs that have new themes, when they get persisted, you'll be able to find those themes and you will be able to find those songs. If I don't persist them, they don't exist, right? Because there's no point where they exist in the inner hexagon, right, in memory, and do not exist in the database. The way, because you have to import them, and the only way you import them is you import them, and then we pretty much immediately write it out to the database. So I feel like there's something I'm not getting from a scenario you're proposing. There is no point in time where songs exist in here, right? In terms of production code, there's no point at which songs exist here and don't exist in the database. They must be in the database, otherwise we couldn't have loaded them into memory. So if they're in the database, then when we do the theme search, we will find those themes because we're looking at the same database. And Mike is rebooting his router. So because these scenarios, now this is to a certain extent, you could say this is CQRS, right? Because we're basically, you've got sort of use cases where we're adding songs, so we're importing the songs and we're writing to the database. And then there's a separate view, a read view of just the themes, but it's still looking at the same database. So we don't have to worry about consistency between sort of two tables or even two databases. It's all one database. We could optimize, like every time you insert, it also updates a separate themes thing, but right now we're not doing that. We're searching and collecting all themes from all rows, which, you know, if we had 1 million songs, then that might be something we'd look at optimizing. But for a few thousand songs, it's not something we probably need to optimize. Now, from a test standpoint, we're stubbing out the theme finder, which means we're having to configure it to act correctly. And as I was talking about earlier, this can be a little bit dangerous, because what if the concrete implementation does things in a way that's different from how you program the stub to work? And that's where, and that's why I like running this controller test basically IO free against the stub, but also IO dependent against the real thing, to make sure that the real thing is working, that my code is expecting the real thing to work in the way that it works. And this is where you know, you might want to think about, is this stub the, you know, what are we using this stub for? And I see similar problems much more prevalent in code that uses a lot of Makito mocks with when this, then return this other thing. You're bypassing a whole bunch of code that may actually be doing different behavior than what you're programming it to return. I think with stubs, it can be a similar problem, and you just have to be careful. It's not an assumption, it's the way it works. We persist songs, and you can't find songs unless they are persisted. And you can't find themes unless those themes are for songs that have been persisted. There's no way that songs and themes get out of sync, because we are searching for themes based on the songs that are in the database. If there was an implementation that modified state around songs in memory and not yet persisted, I don't want to find those either, because those are a separate transaction. So if, for example, we did need to do some manipulation when we do the import, and that for some reason took a non-trivial amount of time, that's fine. When I'm doing a search, I'm not going to see the stuff that was in memory, because that's somebody else's transaction. Let's say there's a review in progress and we have to wait. That's fine. I don't want to find those, because those are in a separate transaction. But Theme Finder will always find themes that have been transactionally completed. So yes, it's true. If we had an implementation where songs in memory had, you know, there were songs and themes in memory that were not persisted, I absolutely do not want to find those, because they're not done yet. The minute they're done, and done meaning they're written to the database, then you'll be able to find them. So this is where it can be a little bit confusing, where we are bypassing. You might be considering that we're actually bypassing our service layer. But if we're doing it for reads, that's fine, because that's no different than anything else. We only need to have our sort of use case layer here. And let's color this correctly. Use cases only get involved when state is changing. If you're not changing state, right, and a search by definition is not changing state, you don't need a use case handler. If you are changing state, like I am modifying, I'm fixing, repairing this thing. I might not be able to make this go over. Yeah. Right. So if we're saying, oh, I need to, before the songs can be officially published, I need to approve them and they're in memory and I'm working on them, then that must go through the use case. But the idea of aggregates comes into play in that what I'm modifying while I'm modifying it should not be seen by anybody else, right? I want to isolate my transactions. So yes, for this data, state must always be persisted. That's very different from certain kinds of transient types of things. So for example, in Ensembler, I have my ensemble timer. That's not persisted anywhere. But then there's only one, and so if the machine crashes, oh well, it's not a big deal. But the way this the way this system works, and the way any system works, is if there are state changes, at least if you're doing this architecture, if there are state changes must go through a use case, because it's the thing that's going to load stuff into memory, right? To basically load stuff into here, call methods on that, and now this state changes, and so it's going to have to then persist it back out. Otherwise, nobody else can see it. Memory, this area is transient. This area only exists while you're executing a use case. I can't think of a case where song themes would not want to always persist. If we imported songs, I want people to find them. There may be a case where I have to approve songs before they're available, right? So we do have that functionality in our backlog, as it were, where contributors can contribute songs, but they're not published yet. But we have to still persist them somewhere. They're just not persisted in the searchable database. So it'll be a separate table for proposed songs, but those will be persisted as well. I'm not sure why you're unhappy about that, Astrid. What in I'm having trouble coming up with there's some aspect of what you're driving at that I'm not getting. I'm sorry, and I know the asynchronous nature of, sorry, not asynchronous, the asymmetric nature of this stream and you in chat is a little frustrating. But use cases are all about state change. If you're not changing state, you don't need to go through the use cases. Right? You look at any use case definition, and it's all about the customer, the user wanting to change something. They're wanting some state to change. And we must persist state, otherwise it's not state. State means it has to remember it. If we forget about it, then it's not state, or at least it's transient state. So so it looks like there's a problem with Mike's router. So we're going to call it for today, and we'll pick it up next time. So thanks for hanging out. And Astrid, maybe we'll get on a Zoom, and you'll explain more your what you're thinking of, because I feel like we're not quite on the same page. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Sorry about the glitch. That's computers for you. So I will be doing a solo stream either tomorrow or Thursday. Probably not both. I will try not to delete Mike in the future. Honestly, it wasn't my fault. I blame the router company. And so we'll pick it up from here next time. And that's it. So thanks for hanging out. And we'll see you next time. As always, join the Discord if you'd like to know about future upcoming streams. Don't forget, we've got our book club. Check it out. Go to ted.dev/book-club and join in for that. It has all the information you need. If you're in the book club, go get the book and read it. And we'll talk about it on the 23rd. And what else? Oh, TDD game. Yes. I have a TDD game. So the solo streams that I'm doing are basically taking this TDD game, and that's it right here, and putting it online. So if you go to tdd.cards, you can look. There's a video here. This video, basically, I walk through the same process of doing test-driven development that we've been doing on stream here and that I do on my solo stream, we do in the game. And basically the video talks about the process and then walks through the game a bit. If you buy the game, you will get early access to the online version. So not everybody's in the same physical location, so it's not easy to play a physical game remotely, although you can. I do it. But it's a lot easier if it's online, and that's what I'm working on my solo stream. And so if you buy the game, you will get early access to the online version. And I still have a few copies left in stock. So go ahead and buy them before I run out. And that's it for today. Hey, Jonas, sorry you joined us just as we're ending. We lost Mike due to a router malfunction on his part. So we're going to have to end here. Join the Discord, check out the TDD game, join the book club, and stay tuned for schedule information about the upcoming streams. And I will see you later. Have a great rest of your day, whatever day is left for you, and I'll see you next time.